The key differentiator among retailers is going to be that whole customer experience, customer service, a part of it, and whether that's in store or whether that's online. So I think the retailers that are going to get that right are the retailers that are going to be the winners in all this.
Mario, as someone who spent decades covering both business and retail, you've developed a strong filter for hype versus reality. From your vantage point, what's actually working in retail right now?
I think what's actually working in retail is the brands that have got the formula correct. They're providing customer service, a good customer service that is. They're providing good experiences, and they're providing value. And value is becoming extremely important, especially in this day and age when consumers are strapped financially.
Makes sense. And are there strategies that retailers continue talking about publicly that are quietly under delivering, Mario?
Well, I think what I think if you look at those three aspects that I just mentioned, the value and pricing of products becomes extremely important in this day and age. There's not a day that goes by that you don't see um, an economic report or a survey talking about the cost of living and inflation and how that's hurting the consumer. So I think it's important that brands get that right. It's one thing to talk about it, there's another thing to do it, right? And so that's why you're seeing the value brands, whether they be Dollarama or whether they be Walmart, doing really well in this environment. And so I think that's the key, and I think going forward, it's going to be the key even more so in the overall industry. And obviously, grocery is huge in that because food prices, are sky high, it seems. Almost every week you go to the grocery store and the prices are extremely high. So that's an area that has to be a focus on.
100%. 100%. What I really liked about what you talked about is value versus, the actual price of a product, right? Now, there is a split that I'm seeing in the market, Mario. Retailers are continuously trying to also focus on sustainability, right? And the sustainability focus is actually being driven by a lot of the Gen Zs and the newer generations who are a lot more focused on making sure that it is not causing a negative impact on our environment, right? And that's amazing. I think nobody before Gen Zs has been as focused on sustainability. So there is a constant tiff in the market that I'm seeing between value delivery and sustainability. And how do you think brands are sort of striking the right balance, and what is really working in the industry and what is not?
I think this is a really interesting and important point because 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I don't think anybody was talking about sustainability, on the corporate level, right? And But now you see all the big brands coming out, every year with a sustainability report, right? And they've noticed that the trend is there, and the trend has been there for a few years now. But and as you pointed out, I think it becomes even more so important for a younger demographic. So the brands, like an IKEA, for instance, have put out their sustainability report, and pat on the back, shout out about what they're doing, and I think that's becoming increasingly important. But you know, when it comes to all that, there's always a cost, right? There's always a cost associated, and for the smaller brands, I think it's tougher. Obviously, they're They don't have as much money to spend on certain areas of their business. The bigger brands, though, obviously put this whole sustainability umbrella into their operations and feel it's important. And it's important. Well, it's important for a number of reasons. Obviously, environmentally, et cetera. But the bottom line, it's important to show the consumer that you're on board with this trend in society, and this is something that's one of your core values.
Yeah. They want A lot of brands, I feel, are genuinely doing it because they care, and a lot of brands are doing it because they want to show that they care, right? And there is
Exactly.
such a difference between the two. It's an interesting space where this is picking up. Of course, the trends have picked up in UK and Europe a lot, but now they're catching up a lot more in the further northern or basically Western markets, right? Like US is catching up, North America regions are catching up a lot more, which is interesting to watch.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe another question in the similar lines: which buzzwords feel more investor facing than customer facing?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Because I'm always being a journalist. I don't like buzzwords.
I'm sure.
Like I'll circle back. Things like that, and I don't like buzzwords. And you know, I don't think personally, from what I see, I don't think a lot of brands and retailers use buzzwords, that are targeted to consumers, right? And I think if the buzzwords are used, they're more in the investor realm and
Mhm.
investor relations and that stuff. From what I can see out there, I think the brands are pretty straightforward, using simple language. The one that hits me all the time, and I know it started a couple years ago, is the use of the word guest as opposed to the word customer, right?
Interesting.
And I often chuckle when I see that, and because to me that's a buzzword, and I know what brands are trying to accomplish by using that word, but think for the general public, I think they're much more comfortable with the use of the word customer than
Makes sense.
guest.
100%. And something that I have, always felt when I'm thinking about buzzwords, like for example, unified commerce, right? Customers don't wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, we want unified commerce." They
Yeah,
wake up in the morning and say, "Why is my order,
yeah,
late? Why is my fulfillment not accurate?" Right? So,
yeah. And
um,
I think that's important. As I was saying before, I think that's important that when brands are communicating with consumers, they talk in the consumer language or the
oh,
average everyday person language, as opposed to using any kind of buzzwords like that, because the general public have no clue what they're talking about, right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like the customers don't wake up and say, "I wish the retailer knew me better," right? What they really want is, you know, can I find the product that I need, right? Why is it out of stock? Why is my order late? Why is, the checkout queue so long and painful, right? Why can't they just simplify it, right? So I 100% agree. I think though, the I feel really adding value to customer experience has to be a lot more simpler, than we make it sound at the end of the day. So makes sense. Uh, you know, Mario, which brands do you see are most grounded in the economic reality and customer behavior at the moment?
Whoa. Yeah, there's a lot of brands that do quite well. It's not rocket science in many ways, right? It's pretty simple. You have the product people want, you deliver it to them, deliver it to them in whatever way it is that you're doing it, and you give them a good price for it, right, and good value for it, and so I think when you look out there in the retail landscape, there's a lot of companies that are doing well, like Group Dynamite, with Dynamite and Garage. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal quarterly results. every time I see their quarterly results, I mean, you almost do like, wow, you know, this company's doing something right. Aritzia is the same way. They're doing something right. Up in Canada, Canadian Tire, are doing something right. And again, I think it hits on all, what I said. You're delivering the product that people want, big important thing, right? What people want, right? And at a good price. And the other thing too is about these kinds of companies. And what I notice is it's the brand recognition, right? And it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that develops over time. But there's certain brands, as a journalist that I follow and write about, that you just know that people are interested in in what they do. And I know, as I said, I'm based in Canada, so I know that certain brands, every time I write anything about Canadian Tire, the views on the website are spike, or anytime I write about Tim Hortons, the views on the website spike. But again, this is something that's taken a long time to build a
Mm.
brand. You just don't build a brand overnight, and you have to do it right.
Yep, yep. I like what you said about, you know sometimes when you talk about some brands, you see the real consumers and the real customers respond to it or react to it, right? And I feel that happens because it's a reciprocation. The customers care about a brand because the brand has cared about them. It's a two-way streak, and
Yeah.
it's the reciprocation that the market gives you when you care about them. And interestingly, how you brought up Group Dynamite, right? So it's a customer that I've most closely observed in the last 2 to 3 years, because they happen to be a customer of G Store. And when it was very interesting how they were super clear on exactly what they wanted. They weren't getting distracted by buzzwords. They weren't getting, this is before they went public, right? Much before they went public when we started working with them. And they were laser focused. They knew they wanted to get their inventory accuracy right. They incentivize their store staff like no one ever did, for making sure that the inventory accuracy and on shelf availability actually reaches 98%. Now that's a big one. Thing is achieving the accuracy to a certain percentage, right, which you can do it with technology, but then ensuring that you achieve the on shelf availability to a 95% plus level is a big thing, because it goes out to show how deeply they are rooted in their operations, and how well they've incentivized their store staff to basically make sure that the on shelf availability is maintained, right? So that's it's amazing to watch. Another thing that, of course, their stock prices soar up from the day they went public. They've grown,
Yeah.
grown, grown. And shout out to how focused they have been as a brand, right? Like they've laser focused on, making sure that they know exactly which, which type of consumer, their consumer group are they focused on, what value. Like if you look at their garage brand, they know they're not catering to a broad range of consumers. They are laser focused on the teenagers and the pre and post teenager group, right? They're laser focused on that, and they're doing phenomenally really well with that. And I think another brand that I've again closely observed is Fabletics, right? How Textile OS, they have multiple brands: Savage X Fenty, Fabletics, etc. Um, they again, the way they've grown, the way they've focused on getting the right nuggets, which the consumer at the end of the day cares about, and that's what builds the brand value at the end.
Yeah.
So. Um, 100%, 100%. Any other brand that hits you, or maybe outside fashion, anything that clicks?
There's a couple of brands that always do, well. Like IKEA does really well. Sephora, I think, does really
Mhm.
well. There's a lot of brands that, and the other thing too, a lot of these brands are very active on the social side of things, social media side of things, right? And I think that's really important. I think people, especially in this day and age, have to understand that it's not just like the old days. You throw an ad on a newspaper or you throw an ad on a TV commercial type thing. The social media becomes extremely important, and I noticed that recently. I'm based in Calgary, and recently we CF Chinook Center, which is the biggest mall in Calgary and one of the top malls in the country, introduced a Shake Shack
Hmm.
in there. That the hype and the build around that was enormous, right? And there was an example of a brand that utilizes social media to the utmost, right? And you know what? And everything from using influencers to just being on the ball when it comes to telling their story, and that's the key: telling your story, right? I remember years ago seeing a quote from one a marketing guy in the States, and he was a well-known marketing guy, and his line was something along the lines of that storytelling is the new marketing, and
Hmm.
and I really believe that, and I think the brands that get it right these days are the brands that tell their stories.
100%. And one most effective way of telling the story these days is via the influencer network, right? Um, how do you, like, I love how Zara has a strong influencer network, right? Both, you know, I'm not sure how much part of it is paid, but like the kind of influencers and the way they're invent like their styling guides and the way it has started to shape up in the social media. A lot of that's true for a lot of brands, and it's I think the results are remarkable from that perspective. um, Mario, another question that I want to ask you is, are the strongest retailers simplifying instead of adding complexity? Right, there has been a trend in the market of over complicating everything, but more recently I'm seeing a lot of simplification. And where do you see that going, and maybe if you can cite some of those examples.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. I think the simplification of anything, anything that we do is important. You remember a lot of consumers these days, they want a simplified process. If they go online, they want a simplified process of choosing product, because everything is about convenience these days. You can get everything, ordered for you, and and delivered to your home. You could go to Walmart and have them pick everything, and you pick it up at the store and just sit in your car and have it delivered to you. So everything is about convenience. So the companies that do it right, and and I'm looking at Amazon, for instance. Like, talk about simplification. My gosh, I want a certain widget, and then boom, get on, onto the computer, boom, it's done. I receive it tomorrow, right? So the companies like that, companies like Walmart, who do all that whole omni-channel thing, that have made it simplified for the consumer, are the ones that are the winners, right? Because, as I said, consumers are strapped for time more and more. They're less patient with things that are overcomplicated, and they just want, give me this and give me this then, right? And those are the guys that are going to win.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's also about how your shop, like the shopper facing applications, right? Like, for example, you have the H&M's shopping app or Zara's shopping app, right? Or the Amazon shopping app. Like, how simplified the experience is, how well you've understood the user journey, how well you're able to bring out the right nuggets from the engagement data, how well are you bringing out the most important things on the top, right? Or how are you making them re-engage appropriately, right? Because a lot of times I love how brands are picking up patterns from consumer behavior and consumer interactions, and then converting them into
Yeah.
nuggets of notifications to them to basically re-emphasize the engagement on certain aspects, right?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
that's what builds the brand pull, right? A lot of times for me, I can shop the same thing from Amazon or from some other platform, etc. But sometimes I feel, some brands really get me right because they would nudge me on a certain product notification which they knew I would have consumed in a month's time, because and it's time for me to, it's really about when does the right trigger come to me as a consumer at the right time, and I act on it, right? And that's what
Yeah.
captures basket size from from a brand perspective.
Yeah, the other thing too is obviously it's an ever evolving world from the technology standpoint. When we look at today compared to where we were before, completely changed, right? And completely evolved. And obviously that trend is going to continue that way. But simple things like mentioned Canadian Tire before, like if I'm looking for a cherry pitter. And I'm going, oh, it's a Canadian Tire habit. I look it up and boom, guess what? I can see that what stores have it.
Um,
They tell me what aisle they're in, and that that to me is as a consumer what you want, right? Now, here's something I've always thought. You want to really make the customer experience even better. I'm waiting for the development of an app where you can walk into a store. One of the most frustrating things, especially grocery shopping, is trying to find out, oh, where is that malt
right,
vinegar? Like, why can't I don't know where the malt vinegar? Can you imagine if there's an app that tells you in a store where
right.
everything is? I'd love
Absolutely.
to see that. And I think a lot of consumers would love to see that because let's face it, a lot of times you're going into stores and there's not that many staff hanging around that you can find to say, hey, where can I find that malt vinegar? Right. And,
100%.
and it's
100%.
frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating because you don't have time to go up and down every aisle and look at every, up and down the shelves to see where's that malt vinegar, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
so I'd love
almost,
to see that app developed one day.
absolutely, and I think it's shaping up. I mean, you're hitting the right nerve from a consumer perspective because it is something that we so deeply care about. I have 10 minutes. I have kids waiting at home. I need to pick up a bunch of stuff and like just leave.
Yeah,
I'm not here to do a treasure hunt. I just need what I need, right?
yeah,
And adding to your thought process of telling me exactly, you have to go to aisle 4, shelf 3, level 1, whatever, but if something could give me a path to it, right? Something that could navigate me to it,
yeah.
right? So
Just
that
like
is
your
in fact
GPS, right? Just like your
exactly
GPS, just
in
punch
store.
in malt vinegar and boom, it takes you right to the exact spot.
Absolutely, absolutely. And interestingly, a lot of brands are doing that. So for example, as we speak, PetSmart, who's one of our biggest
Oh,
customers, the 1,600 stores live, they're uh, for them, the exact same problem statement was for their third party fulfillment, right? So there is a third party group that does omni-channel order fulfillment from PetSmart stores, right? Now, those third party consumers, when they come into a store and they're trying to fulfill an order and they, let's say, need 4 items in that order, they don't understand the shop floor, right? And the PetSmart stores are huge. Most of the PetSmart stores are huge, right? And the amount of time that they take in fulfilling an order is huge. The bigger problem is less to do with amount of time it take, the amount of time they take away from the store staff, right? Because that third party associate is looking for a PetSmart associate working in the PetSmart store, taking that person's time and saying, "Oh, I need this. Where do I go?" And that PetSmart associate is, roaming around in the store, helping him fulfill an order, which he will not even get incentivized for as a PetSmart associate. I'm not getting incentivized to help the third party associate, right? I have tasks in hand. I have to make sure that my on shelf availability is correct and my walk-in customers are getting the help instead of me going back. And so what, for example, we've done is we've digitized their store maps, and converted them into like a GPS, exactly as you said.
Yeah.
And as a third party associate, I get the path to the order fulfillment throughout the PetSmart store. So what took them upwards of 5 minutes to fulfill, it now takes them 2 to 3 minutes to fulfill, because now they don't even have to worry the store staff. The store staff can focus on the walk-in customers and help them pick the products, right? And the third party associates sort of literally get like a Google map which tells them, go to one place, look here, you will find this, then go here, then go here, then go here. And we've done it in a headless fashion, right? So that all that experience is being consumed in a single application, so that as an associate or as a third party associates, I don't have to keep switching between applications. And that's real value. And PetSmart is one example. Another interesting H&M is trying to do something similar in Canada.
Hmm.
So for example, the map that we create with the overhead RFID data and sort of the pin locations using RFID technology, always on technology, all of that data is being pushed to the consumer app. And within the consumer app, they're doing, they're testing out how, as a consumer, I can see if exactly that product is available in a store, get a path to it. So, they can even find it in a store. They will know exactly where in the store it is, and traverse through it, right? So, right, it's in early stages of testing, but I think things like this, and it's interesting to see how how what you're asking for is something that brands are actually solving for, and they're seeing a value in it. So I think within the next couple of quarters, you will see a lot of brands really picking this up and doing it.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. It's an
Yep.
interesting topic. It's an interesting evolution as any industry would go through.
100%. Mario, another thing that that I'm seeing as a pattern is there are some concepts or some store formats that work well while the others don't, right? So, as per your experience, which store formats or concepts seem positioned for future success?
I think that the ones that make in terms of the physical store, the ones that make things easy to navigate are the ones that do well. And again, you walk into certain stores, and it's a whole ambiance too, right? And how the lighting, the
The
is
music.
modern look? Is it feel comfortable in there? Like I like stores where you can actually have a place where you can sit, because oftentimes you're not going in alone, and you're going in with somebody, and you're waiting for somebody because they're going through the store. So the having a nice place to sit, the stores that add things in there, like whether it's coffee to browse around, all those types of things. It comes back to what we're saying at the beginning about customer experience. It's extremely important, right? And you want an experience as you walk in the door that you kind of go, wow, like, oh, this is cool. This is a nice looking store, clean. All that stuff like is extremely important, and I think the brands that do that are the ones that really do well, and the ones that kind of make a store harder to navigate, or even too overwhelming. That it's like going to a restaurant, and you get in a menu, and you're going, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff, right?
Mm. That's
Back to what we're saying about
yeah.
simplicity. If they simplify things and make it easier for the customer to find things, and to see things, I think you're doing well.
Yeah, I love how you talked about, in a restaurant when you have lesser options, it's better. I was recently with a friend at a dinner, and that person is a vegetarian, and the first reaction was looking at the menu. So it was a 5 course meal restaurant, and the first thing that person who I went with is the CEO of a company, etc. And the first thing that person reacts to is, oh wow, I like the menu, just one vegetarian option in every category. I don't have to put my brain. All I have to say is I'm vegetarian. Just just serve me, right? So sometimes, people like simplicity to that extent. It almost cracked me up because I am not that consumer who doesn't like options. Yes, I don't want to be overwhelmed, but I want some options on the table. Vis-a-vis, there are people who absolutely want curated stuff. There is one option or two options and a three at max, and I can just choose from them, right? So simplicity um, is sort of a demand, right? More than it's almost becoming a necessity in some places.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
Again, from a customer standpoint, it's just a feeling that you get. That's the kind of question that I love retailers to ask in surveys. How do you feel walking into one of our stores? What comes to your mind and as you walk in, like initially, right? And I think it's extremely important. And then again, and going forward, it becomes even more so important because we're in a competitive world, and there's not a lot of money to be handed out by consumer these days. So all those little things matter.
absolutely. And on that mark, Mario, as you said, there are in your surveys you are hearing that customers are saying there are certain brand experiences or store experiences that they like, right? Maybe on those lines, what should retailers pay closer attention to in the next 2 to 3 years? Like, where do you see that they should be driving their investments, for future success?
I think the key differentiator among retailers is going to be that whole customer experience, customer service, a part of it, and whether that's in store or whether that's online. So, I think retailers going forward have to spend resources, whether that be time and money, to make sure that they get that right. Because I think the retailers that are going to get that right are the retailers that are going to be the winners in all this. Because again, as I said, it's a competitive world. Not much money, increasingly so that consumers are strapped financially, so they're going to spend their money at places, obviously, that deliver the goods, so to speak, to them. And again, that whole customer service, customer experience thing is the key.
Right. And this was one of the topics in another podcast, and maybe I'll ask you that question here as well. Like, what drives the experience? Is the brand, like, or maybe what creates that the brand, right? Is it more of a marketing function or is it more of an operations function?
That's a good question. I think it comes down to the fundamentals of actually doing it. A lot of you can talk about it a lot, but as a consumer, as I walk into your store, for example, or if I go online to do how consumer friendly is that experience? And
Hmm.
I think the companies that will spend time with their, on the technology side of things, for the e-commerce, but then the in-store to spend time with their staff. They really need to train your staff, right? That means everything from from their personality to having a friendly face who's very helpful and knowledgeable. And so I think you really need to focus on that. And I don't know how many times I go into a store and you ask staff a question, I have no clue. I have no
Hmm.
clue what you're talking about. I don't know where that is. Wait a
Why
second.
are you
Like,
even
well,
here?
shouldn't you know? A, shouldn't you know? And then B, if you don't know, shouldn't you make the effort to find out? And to help
Absolutely.
the customer. So training and getting that staff up speed is immensely important. I always talk about the restaurants, right? And I always say that you could have the best food at the best prices out there, but if your staff is bad, it kills everything. right? And I think that's the same thing with the retailers. If I walk into a store, like a clothing store, and I get a bad experience from your staff, guess what? I ain't coming back. And you
Mm,
may have the best prices out there. You may have some of the best apparel out there. It don't
mm.
matter.
100%, 100%. So what I'm hearing is it's more of an operations function these days than anything else, right? And on that mark, another thing that at least in the last few years of my experience of working very very closely at retail stores and helping drive technology innovation, I've realized that it is also a brand's responsibility to make sure that your store staff has the right amount of mind space to help consumers, right? So if you've overwhelmed your store staff on a lot of back end operations, right, it is almost inevitable for them to interact with the customer in a certain way, right? You cannot absolutely disconnect the two. So you have to make sure that you have the right well trained staff, and you also as a brand have to make sure that you're giving them enough mind space to operate and to deliver the customer experience and really become brand ambassadors than store associates who are just walking around running around making sure that their tasks are done, right? So
Yeah.
that is also important from a brand perspective.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking one of the biggest challenges I think probably out there right now is obviously when it comes to the retail sector, a lot of the staff is young, right? Young people, entry level jobs. So you have that going on. But then on the other side of the thing is what's happening is a lot of the personal interpersonal skills that are required to do that job properly, you've got a generation of people growing up lacking those interpersonal skills because they're always, just always on the phone, right? They're on the phone all the time, and they're texting, right, and stuff. So they're losing that personal one-on-one contact with people, and they're not developing that mindset, that skill, uh,
Mm,
in their lives. Well, translate that into a work environment. Well,
mm,
now you're looking for staff. How do I find staff that have got the interpersonal skills that are needed for this job, right? When you've got a generation that are moving away from that.
mm. Absolutely. So Mario, on those lines, what are some of the signals that you are watching that maybe others are overlooking in the industry?
Ooh, I think again, I think the number one thing that everybody is watching, and but I think you have to really keep a closer eye on it, is the technology side of things, and especially AI. And AI and how it's going to be used, right? And there's multiple ways that you can use AI. I'm curious to see how certain retailers are going to be innovative in the use of AI, and not so much to replace the human element of it, but more so to magnify the convenience for consumers, and how they're going to make the AI make it how do I say
More
it's
impactful, maybe.
yeah, more impactful for consumer, but to make it all an easier experience and a better experience for the consumer. So that's the key, going forward is the use of AI, and it's one of those things that a lot of people are kind of overwhelmed by it,
Mhm.
and they're still really at its initial stages, right? And we don't really know the full potential, but I think that's something that's going to be key going forward for many retailers, and no matter what size you are, like the mega stores to the smaller, more independent stores.
Yep. From a retail store perspective, I feel the aspect of the human touch is not going to go away anywhere, right? Like AI might make you more effective. AI might become that piece which sort of caters to the customers when the human element is not around, right? So and there are ways of tapping into, and maybe a lot of retailers are now building AI agents, which a lot of brands are trying to train AI agents who can sort of become the store staff themselves. Right now, that does not mean that the store staff is going away anywhere. It's nowhere near to reality, right? There's going to be a fine balance between the two, and it's about complementing the humans more than replacing them, right? Because there is only so much human staff that retailers can afford in a retail store, and that which can drive economic value, and catering to the rest of the consumer needs with um with AI agents is absolutely a win-win, both for
Yeah.
consumer experience as well as not overwhelming your store staff, so that when they're talking to one consumer, they're not worried about the other four that they're not able to touch.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Yeah. And
so my
I
sorry.
think no, I was just going to say I think you're dead on that in the sense that from a physical store standpoint, it becomes all about the human interface aspect of it, and AI can help in certain different operational type things in a store itself, physical store, but it all comes down to the person, right? That the consumer meets as they walk in that door. The ones that get that right and spend time on it, will do well. But I think over time, there hasn't been that much time and resources spent on that element of running your business. Is that, oh geez, we need a person, let's hire Johnny over there, and then just throw him into the fire, right? And no, that doesn't work.
Absolutely. So Mario, with that, tell us a little bit about what are you up to these days, maybe a little bit about your past, and what what are you working on from a future perspective.
Well, what am I working on? Almost every day, there's just that's one thing I find about the retail world. There is never a dull or quiet moment, right? Whether the economy is good, if the economy is good, then everything's good, right? And there's lots of stories to write about. And on the flip side, the economy is bad. Well, guess what? There's a lot of stuff there. So there's, obviously we're watching certain brands and the level of viability that they have. We've seen some issues over the past year with the Bay in Canada with Saks.
Mhm.
We had Nordstrom issues here in Canada. All that stuff. So we're watching that closely. Also watching what I'm really interested is in the real estate side of retail.
Mm.
And you look at shopping centers, right? And you look at shopping centers, and two things. A is how they fill that all that space that's left behind when a Saks leaves or when a Bay leaves. How that space is filled. That's one thing. And then the evolution of shopping centers. What's in there, right? It's not this shopping center of 10, 15, 20 years ago is not there today. It's a completely different shopping center, and again comes into customer experience, right? Shopping centers have become more of a gathering place. There's a lot of food at shopping centers, and I'm talking beyond the actual food court areas, right? There's actual restaurants and
Absolutely.
good quality restaurants now in shopping centers where there wasn't, years ago, where that wasn't the case. And again, the shopping center has become a social hub. People, a lot of, you go to any shopping center these days and there's a lot of older people walking. That's what they do for their exercise. They're walking around the shopping center. So I'm watching the evolution of shopping centers because, over COVID, obviously everybody was talking with the burst in e-commerce. Everybody talked about, oh, is retail dead, right? And no, it's not dead. It's evolved, and it seems to even be getting stronger. I think because people still want that. They still want
Yep.
that physical aspect and social aspect of being out at a store.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think if you compare the three different generations, right? I think there are statistics around Gen Zs, spending 48% time at stores or in shopping centers, vis-a-vis millennials spending, uh, something on the lines of 40% time, and then the bloomers spending maybe 38% time, right? And you only see those numbers increasing over time, right? Because people still want that warmth and they still want that touch and feel. So absolutely, what the numbers are stating as well. So Mario, with that, people who are interested in chatting further with you, where can we send them?
Oh, you can send me that my email, Mario, Mario, at retail-insider.com. And I can be reached there. And yeah,
Awesome, excellent. Thank you so much, Mario, for doing this. It was lovely chatting with you.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. I enjoyed the time.